Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have not an SCP.
For once.
Yeah. Well,
Not that I hate SCP, but oh my god.
Yeah, no, I figured like we'd take a break from the foundation and go back to creepypasta.wiki. I actually like looked through and like kind of just went through some of the not recommended, but I think they were the hang on a second. Oh no, fuck. I clicked the wrong thing. I think it was like Writer Showcase like a couple weeks ago, and I found Plague of Pigs by MLycanthrope or MLycanthrope. Or no, MLycanthrope. Thank you. There we go. So yeah, we're doing Plague of Pigs, which is a creepypasta by MLycanthrope.
Are you getting paid every time you say MLycanthrope?
I couldn't pronounce it properly, so I was like trying to.
Yeah, but you just said that doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
MLycanthrope's Plague of Pigs by MLycanthrope. It's like Clive Barker's Jericho by Clive Barker.
Indeed, yes.
So yeah, that's what we're doing today. And I guess I'll just dive right into the rundown here. So it's the Middle Ages in the Czech Republic, Bohemia to be exact, and the bubonic plague is ruining the lands and its people. Jaroslav is a plague doctor and our main protagonist, who visits his dying blacksmith friend Jan. Jan has been swinging and spiraling as the plague racks his body and mental state. So he's like getting all delusional and he's coughing up phlegm and blood and not all that great stuff. During Jaroslav's visits, Jan claims that his daughter, Michaela, who perished alongside the rest of Jan's family months earlier, has appeared to him at night through a dreadful version. Like her hair is like darkened and her eyes are red and she's all sickly and pale. Jaroslav believes this to be a delusion of a dying man, and over several visits attempts to ease his friend's failing state. These delusions even come up as Jan begins blaspheming against God for taking his family and life away. There's also several instances beyond Jan's hut where Jaroslav encounters pigs, both living and dead, decapitated and even buried under rock piles. Anyway, as time progresses, it appears that Jaroslav has also contracted the plague, though he endeavors to aid people further while he can. On his last visit to Jan, he sees that the blacksmith's condition has worsened to the point the plague doctor goes to call upon the priest for last rites and confessions for Jan. The priest, disgusted by the scene, but continuing with the service, asks Jaroslav to leave the room as he takes Jan's final confession. In that room, Jan confesses to conspiring with another true god of the land and reveals this plague was set upon the people for believing otherwise. At this moment, Jaroslav, stabbed and dead, collapses into the room, and Michaela is revealed to be alive and, I do in quotes, well, having crawled out of the mass graves. She kills the priest, and the father and daughter find salvation in a new god and watch the rest perish to the plague of pigs. Fin. So that's the skinny, basically. There's definitely a lot more in the story, and you can check that out at the creepypasta.wiki website. But I guess we'll move on to everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions at this point. So I'm going to just start with this one. The stench of death haunted the living and the towns that have turned ghastly and silent. I think it should be the stench of death haunted the living and the towns that had turned ghastly and silent. Actually, that's a weird sentence. I'm just catching that now. It's like the stench of death haunted the living, maybe a comma and then no and then the towns that had, or the towns have turned ghastly and silent. Maybe? Sorry, guys. I just realized that might be like an issue right now. We're doing it live.
Yeah, it's basically like the stench of death haunting the living is one part, and then the towns have turned ghastly and silent is the second part.
Yeah, exactly. And then my next one here, Jaroslav stood at the Jaroslav stood at the entrance to the hut of his friend Jan Kovar, who had suffered the terrible affliction himself. That is, after all of his family to the plague in months prior. Okay, so I fixed this a little bit, maybe, or like, I give some suggestions on how to fix this. So it's around the part where it's like, that is after his family perished, died, succumbed, maybe even to the plague in the months prior. Just like some words are missing in that last sentence.
I had the same correction, although I thought it would be good enough with just the first part changing, not necessarily the in months.
In months prior, I think it might be a dialect thing or even like a personal preference. Like I feel like you could have the in it, but also like rereading it, it's like in months prior is also a fair.
What's the way you want it?
I figured like in the months prior.
But then you're like doubling up on those really quickly because it's to the plague in the months prior.
Yeah, that's fair. And in months prior is both streamlined and also gets the word across the sentence across properly, like without any issue. Like it's just like I take it or leave it, I guess, to add that the.
Yeah, the correction I did for the relation to the family of what happened to them was after all his family was lost to the plague.
Yeah, that's also another version. I just kind of came up with a couple of ones.
For sure. Yeah. I just figured I would put my 2 cents in as well, so I don't have to bother reading it.
Absolutely. So we're not like doubling down on the same sentence and corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the potential issue I had is it doesn't really specify whose family died of the plague.
I mean,
it says his family, which could be either or.
Okay. It does.
The last subject was talking about his friend.
We're getting into it territory here.
Yeah,
with Mikey, and like it always infuriates me. It's like the last sentence literally leaves off with Jan Kovar, who had suffered the terrible affliction himself. That is after all of his family to the had perished in the plague.
That's how those 2 sentences. Then.
It also in that case, I guess it could just be like honestly, it could be a one run-on sentence, I suppose.
Well,
it wouldn't be run-on though. It would be this. Jaroslav stood at the entrance to the hut of his friend Jan Kovar, who had suffered the terrible affliction himself after his family was lost to the plague months prior. It's really not that long.
It feels a little long. It's like teetering on the edge of like too long or just enough to me, which is weird coming from me because I'm the one that usually tries to defend really short, sentences and such.
There's just like a lot of extra words in that because this. Like the part that is after all unnecessary, kind of like it's necessary for that sentence, but if you combine them, you can just remove all of that.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I do like how we continually like struggle with this. Like every sentence is an island upon itself.
What?
Like it's like with like Mikey and the It stories, it's like no, every sentence must be self-contained.
Well, yes and no.
It does seem like that is the root of the It stories though half the time.
Well, the whole point of the It stories is because you shouldn't be starting stuff with it.
I like how we've gone this far in this story with the It stories, and I'm still like kind of muddy about its understanding or about understanding it.
You understand?
I kind of do.
Really?
Kind of.
You still don't fully get it?
No, not really. I know it's for lulz half the time, but
well, yeah, but
still like
reason. Okay, it became like, lulz.
Yeah, no, I will say like it still just kind of like mentally irks me because it's like I understand the context.
Yeah, but that's like saying you can write this huge essay and have like a really tiny sentence at the end, but because you read the entire essay, it makes sense. So then that sentence is fine.
Yeah,
even if it's
fine.
Not grammatically correct.
I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, it's like you have the context of the whole, therefore it's fine. Yeah. That's not the story. That's the. Let's keep going.
Fine.
All right. Do you have anything else there, actually, Mikey, about this sentence, or can I go on?
We can move on.
Okay. The doctor, taken aback for a moment, tried calming down the plague-ridden blacksmith, but to no avail. Okay, yeah, okay, that's what I had wrong. Okay, so I'm going to start that over for a second. The doctor, taken aback for a moment, tried calming down the plague-ridden blacksmith, but to no avail. So this one might be a little subtle. It might be a nitpick, but I feel like there should be a comma between the doctor and taken. So like the doctor, taken aback for a moment, tried calming down the plague-ridden blah blah blah. Just because it's just like the doctor taken aback, like it just keeps going, and then there's a comma. It's like, oh, okay, that there needs to be a comma because we're getting kind of a little bit of a scene fluff of as to the doctor's state of being.
Yes.
Yeah. And then my next one,
we had to balance it out because we talked for like 10 minutes on the previous one. This one's just yep. All right.
Yeah, I mean that's guys, that's our grammar position half the time. It's just like we're either in agreement or we don't agree whatsoever, and we spend like 10 minutes talking about it. Why we don't agree with each other. Welcome to our show, guys. Whoever's listening to this. Hopefully you're not listening to this for the first time. But if you are, thank you.
And hello.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to my next one. First, he had to see the man's family die out. Okay, right. Okay. First, he had to see the man's family die out a horrible death, and now the man himself, Jaroslav's friend of many years, was a fever-drunk fool who could kill himself just by standing up. All right, so I feel like you probably don't need out there. So it would be like first he had to see the man's family die a horrible death. You don't need the die out a horrible death.
Or it'd be die out in a horrible death. In horrible deaths.
Or even you can almost just say like first he had to see the man's family die out, just and then comma.
Or horribly die out.
Yeah, exactly. Horribly die out. Because like die out to me, it's like I always kind of for some reason mentally attribute that to like extinction. So like the whole so technically his whole family died out.
Yeah. But they died out in a horrible
way.
So they died out through death. To double down on the death.
Exactly, yeah. They mostly come at night, mostly. But yeah, so I feel like it could either be like you don't need the die out, you just need die a horrible death, or the family
or
the man's
keep the die out and remove the horrible death.
Yeah, exactly. Or even have like the man's family horribly died out.
Yes.
Or died out horribly. Anyway, on to the next one. Placing his hand onto the man's forehead, he sighed a sigh of relief. The fever broke. Should probably just say he sighed with relief. Again, it's kind of the story has a lot of like they mostly come at night, mostly sort of like double additions. Like they're slightly the word is the same, but it's used slightly differently, but it's still kind of weird.
Yeah, I would go with he gave a sigh of relief.
Yeah, exactly. That would work as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like technically there's nothing wrong with it. It just sounds weird or it sounds kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a buffalo situation.
Exactly. Yeah, those are all the same. Those are all the same word, but used differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, moving on to my next one. There was a lot of growling and squealing, and then something popped and cracked, and there was more growling, but the squealing stopped. Later, more dogs came around, and I assume ate the whole thing whole. I know this is dialogue.
It is.
And the man is slightly delusional from his illness. But that is no excuse for improper grammar. Except when it is.
Really not. Yeah,
Also, just one. Like for me, just like you just need the one whole. Again, it's again the story has likes to double up on word on the same word sometimes.
Right, well, this one's dialogue, so that means you get to go sit in the nitpick nook.
Oh yeah, I'm totally I'm loud. I'm already on it. I've completely taken up the space. But yeah, it's just I was like, and again, it's totally unwarranted because the character himself, it's the way he talks because he is delusional from the plague. So, and also maybe that's just how he talks. But at the same time, grammar is grammar, and this is the grammar inquisition.
I'd say that the sentences that he says aren't weird and they aren't strange enough for that to kind of work because they're generally pretty standard sentences. If he had some sort of a reoccurring thing that you can point out between all of his dialogue or see it getting worse and worse, And yeah, but
seriously
no.
defending? Are you seriously defending my my grammar position of dialogue?
Yeah. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, no. Again, like it just it's just kind of like hammering home the whole like idea of like the story has a lot of those like double up on words.
Mhm.
So on to my last one. When the session was finished, Jaroslav woke up. Well, yeah. When the session was finished, Jaroslav woke Jan up, telling him he's about to leave. Feel like it should be like again, we got like a past tense, present tense thing going on here, like confliction of both. So it should be like when the session was finished, Jaroslav woke Jan up, and woke Jan up, telling him he was about to leave, just to kind of like fix the past tense, present tense, because the story does kind of occasionally slip into a past tense, present tense conflict.
Isn't this meant to be told like as it's going though? So shouldn't this all be present
most
tense?
of it-
Like yes, it's a past story, but
Yeah,
it's
well,
being told in the moment.
I'd agree with you if most of the story was present tense, but most of it seems to be past tense. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
going on the assumption that it's past tense predominantly. And yeah, that's my grammar inquisition. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. Let's see here. I have one followed by a potential it story.
Okay, so I guess we'll do the first thing first, and then the it story.
All right, so the quote here: Jaroslav turned around as the man rambled on and walked out of the room, unable to handle the absurdity of the situation.
Oh no, I think
So-
I heard the issue there. I think yeah. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so the issue is that the man rambled on and walked out of the room while Jaroslav turned around.
Yeah.
So I rewrote this sentence. Unable to handle the absurdity of the situation, Jaroslav turned around and walked out of the room as the man rambled on.
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because like as soon as you read that, I was like, oh shit. It's like because I immediately envisioned like Jan getting up, rambling on while walking out of the room past Jaroslav. All right, so and then we got an it story now.
Yep.
And now an it story with Mikey. The E stands for evil. Take it away.
It spread from the east via the seas and trade routes as unseen plague that spared none in its path. It was clearly weak and pathetic. Finn.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, everyone knows that the bubonic plague was a bitch.
Yeah, it really was.
Only half the population at the time. What ifs? It's no COVID-19. Oh no, I can't even do that. No.
Yeah.
Ooh, a little too topical again. I don't know why I chose this one. Also, that was a joke historically. Yeah, like I understand that the bubonic plague sucked, like royally for the whole world. And plagues are nothing to really laugh about, except I guess uncomfortably.
I think the joke was pretty clear when you jokingly said it was a bitch. It only wiped out half of the human race.
Yeah. You think that, but like, watch me get like some hate mails. Like, I think that was very insensitive.
No, I suppose.
Well, then we'd actually get hate mail. Yay!
Do it. Do it. Yeah, kill me. Kill him. Sorry.
Anyways,
Yes.
can I go?
Yep.
Okay. So mine is pretty early on here for the start. First, the demonic steppe heathens from the east arrived to terrorize Christendom with their insatiable hunger for destruction and inhuman lust for blood of the civilized people. They scorched the earth beneath the hooves of their horses, a token to their infernal masters, one would assume. So this is very early on, like maybe first or second little mini paragraph. Actually, it's the very first paragraph. I didn't know what heathens this was referring to at this point, like literal demons, although they're quote unquote from the east.
Yeah,
However,
no.
in the next paragraph, it mentions like the Tartar menace. So I had to like look up that and learn things.
You had to look up what all that was about.
Was tartar sauce like a freaking poison back then or something?
No.
I learned.
I have it in my. I do have something. Yeah, I have something in my actual thoughts about this very thing, about this whole like setting plot thing.
Yeah, long and short of my my grammar thing here is like maybe like name drop them a little earlier, so I'd be googling them way earlier because when I finished reading the first paragraph, I thought there was just demons running around fucking with things.
Yeah.
And like, because I can only get so far from googling demonic steppe heathens. I'm like, okay, that doesn't come up with anything.
I mean, okay, so I immediately, so this is kind of, I guess, a difference of perspective, or not a difference of perspective, a difference of experience, I guess, because from that sentence, I immediately knew that they were talking about the Mongolians invading Europe. Because
Okay,
of history, because I remembered that from history class. Is that they basically like Christian dominated Europe considered anybody from the East that did not worship God as heathens. And the Mongolians and the Tartars, like that, Tartars is the name for the Mongolia, or was a term used for the Mongolians.
Mm-hmm.
Or anybody different from us out in Europe.
What the hell is the demonic steppe?
So the steppe, so the Mongolians and are from Mongolia, which is known for its steppes, which are kind of like plateau. Is another word for geologically like a plateau, like a tableland. Basically like they're called steppes, I guess, because they are like hills with flat tops that stretch out. So that's the steppe heathens. Basically, they're referencing the Mongolians coming where they come from and such.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But again, like this is a creepypasta, so
I know. Yeah,
this could have been fucking anything reading this at the start.
That you're not wrong. And again, I'll get into it with my actual thought on this. But yeah, it's there's definitely a the story has a difference of like just definitely skews your perception based on your experience with like history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I read it, it's like demonic. When I saw demonic steppe, I imagined that was a place called the demonic steppe, and they're heathens from there.
I mean,
although the way it's supposed to, way it's actually saying is they're steppe heathens who are demonic.
Yeah,
is the way it's being described here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure somewhere in history, someone called the Mongolians steppe heathens, like. Because they're from the steppes of Mongolia or like the East, and they're heathens because they don't worship our god.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Then moving on, the itch hadn't been the reason his thoughts shifted elsewhere. The obvious implication of said itch was, period, he knew the creeping touch of death had infected him. Rather, so it kind of seemed off, the little connection in between those.
It feels like he's trailing up because he doesn't want to think about the implication, but then immediately starts thinking about the implication.
Yeah,
I mean, it's more of like kind of that's almost like a thought or a dialogue thought thing.
Oh, I know. It's just like the wording of it seemed off.
Yeah.
For me, the way I rewrote it is the itch hadn't been the reason his thoughts shifted elsewhere, comma, he knew the creeping touch of death had inflicted him.
Yeah.
It's just kind of simpler.
That's fair.
Because like you don't need to say the obvious implication of the itch was something, and then period, and then start a new sentence to describe what that obvious implication was that you just said.
And then you don't want to think about it, but then you're going to think about it.
Yeah. And then later on, when he's describing the angel or god being that he saw, I looked up at the faces and bands made of gold covered his eyes so he could not sin or speak of our earthly sins. So when I read that, first I was thinking, wouldn't he need gold bands over his mouth too? Because covering eyes does not stop your ability to speak. However, However, like thinking about it again, as soon as I typed that out, I'm like, no, I was reading that wrong. His eyes are covered so he can't see all the shit that humans are doing. So he can't talk about what he doesn't see.
It is metaphorical.
Yeah, he can speak if he wants to, probably. I don't know. But regardless, he's covering his eyes to the sins of humanity. Basically.
Yeah. Well, I, for whatever reason, thought it was more of a each head had a different thing covered up. So the eyes were covered on one, the mouth was covered on the other, and the ears were covered on the last one.
Yeah, the hear
that's
no
what
evil,
I first thought
see
as
no
well.
evil.
Yeah, that's what I first thought as well. However, reading it, it just says bands made of gold covered his eyes.
And then there's my point of view on this.
What's yours?
I just thought it was a giant like I was like after reading that sentence, like, oh, okay, so it's not just a band that goes over his eyes. It's a wide band of gold that just goes around his whole head, covering his entire face.
All three faces?
Yeah, or no, like there's each one has one of these bands or something on it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it like a narrow band that goes over his.
For all of them.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think it was like a band that went over just his eyes. By the end of the sentence, I was like, oh, okay, so it's like just like a wide band that goes like basically the full length of his head or like his face and covers his mouth and head or his mouth and eyes, like in the same band.
You mean like a helmet? Just like a solid helmet?
No, not a helmet. More like just like a I guess almost like a blindfold that's long that's like wide enough down that it covers your mouth as well.
So it's like a vertical line over your face, like down to your chin, but it goes up, but it doesn't cover like your ears and the side of your head.
No, I'm thinking of like going horizontal around the guy's around the god or angel's head. And so like, but that band is so wide that it basically covers up the eyes and the mouth in its width.
Okay, but his chin and the top of his head pokes through still because it's just like a huge band. I'm trying to visualize what you're saying, and every time I describe what
maybe
you're
I'm saying
me,
not wide. It's like picture like a ring, basically like a giant like head, like a ring that you could fit over somebody's, or like a head, a ring that you could fit over somebody's head. Like you'd be crowning them, but it goes right over the head and like in place between in front of the eyes and the mouth.
Can I simplify this?
Sure.
Are you basically saying like take a WWE wrestling belt and wrap it around your head?
Yes, that's
cool.
it.
All right.
That's exactly what I was seeing. I was seeing a little bit more like the ring from Lord of the Rings, like a golden like band, like
of
a
course,
plain one, but like but like width and lengthwise is it's the WWE band or belt.
Okay, cool. I know what you're drawing.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna draw that. It's just John Cena.
Yeah, totally. One of the heads has to be John Cena now.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yes.
I did not see it that way. I was going to rewrite it. I was going to rewrite it saying like bands of gold covering his eyes and mouth, as in like he's got like freaking bands going everywhere covering all of his senses. Although no, I don't think that's the way it's meant to be.
Although I think all of us thought that, because even I, like before I did the weird tube over his head.
Oh, you went back on that?
No. When I first started, I was like, oh, I thought that's where the sentence was going. But when I finished the sentence, like, oh, okay, no, it's not that.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I did initially, like when I started reading that sentence, I thought it was going to go that way, where it was just going to be like all like one head was going to have the eyes covered, the other one was going to have the mouth covered, and the other one had the ears covered, and then it didn't. So I was like, all right.
So it sounds like we all had the same first assumption, having the different senses on each head. And then we all had different second assumptions, because you went with the WWE Championship. I went with just Geordie LaForge on all of them. What'd you do, Mikey?
I think he went the monkey see, or like the see no evil, hear no evil.
Oh, you stuck with your original guns?
Yeah, I think so.
Of course. Alrighty then. There's the three heads of the angel that you can draw now. Yep. One of them is John Cena. One of them is Geordie LaForge, and one of them has a band over his eyes, mouth, and ears.
Nice. Thanks.
You're welcome.
And it's a three-headed man. So we got like Geordie LaForge on one side, John Cena on the other, and then in the middle we got the one that has all of them all of them covered.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Or you just combine all of our characters into this angel.
Oh God. Yeah, we're the fucking yes. Oh shit. Okay.
Anyway, I'm good. Okay. That's my last one.
All right. Then I guess we'll move on to actual thoughts. And you'll be happy this time, gamer, because I actually moved some things that I would have usually put into grammar position into actual thoughts because of your bickering about me putting them in grammar position.
We don't bicker. We argue.
So I'm going to start with my first one here.
Okay.
A violent cough cut his call short. Blood and sickening yellow sputum flowed out of his mouth and as he coughed. Sputum. Noun. A mixture of saliva and mucus coughed up from the respiratory tract, typically as a result of infection or other disease, and often examined microscopically to aid medical diagnosis. That's from the dictionary.com. I learned a word today. It was gross. I've never heard
about sputum now.
I've never heard of sputum or sputum.
I think it's sputum. I've heard it as sputum.
Yeah, I've never heard of that word.
We have very different levels of knowledge on things. You
of
know about the
education?
past
Yeah.
and like the Tartars. I know all about sputum.
Yeah. 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 And then I'm going to move on to my next one here. She appeared in the middle of the night, skeletal, pale, barely resembling herself. She just stood there over the bed, Jan said as he frantically pointed into the air. Her once luscious gold hairs were thin and black. Her green eyes, they were so red. She just stood there and stared at me until I woke up. All right, so this story does have a couple of moments where it's trying to be serious and dark, and I don't know why I went this way, but I kept chuckling at certain parts, like morbid humor, I guess, in a way.
Of course you did.
I'm a sick fuck. I'll admit it. I have a sick
Okay.
personality.
As long as you
Or
get
I have a sick sense of humor. So I understand that Jan could recognize his daughter even with any with such like cosmetic changes, like facial structures and stuff all being that way. But there was a moment where I was like, wait, you're countering the description of your own daughter. Like, oh, it was her. It was exactly like her, skeletal and pale, and her golden hair, it was black, and her green eyes, they were red. It's like, and I don't know why. I just like I was just chuckling at like this sad horribleness. It's like it was her. It was my daughter. It is exactly like her, except it wasn't. It's like I like yeah. It's definitely and I'm pretty sure this is unintentional because it happened again later on in the story. Let me just pull that one up here. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. So this is like later on when Jaroslav is giving is administering leeches to his friend. So the plague doctor attached a few leeches to the sick man's legs, and they sat in complete silence through the entire session. The room felt chilly and almost eerie. The sweet, meaty smell started dissipating from the air, and only the stench of bloated corpses remained. And I'm sorry, but as soon as I read the parts the plague doctor attached the few leeches to the sick man's legs, and they just sat there in complete silence throughout the entire the entire session. It's just very awkward. And
when I first read that, I thought when it was saying they just sat there in complete silence, the leeches just sat on his leg and didn't do anything. They're just hanging out.
Okay, yeah, that would have been weird. That would have been an interesting and weird thing to happen. Like they won't touch his blood.
Yeah.
But see, I was
That's
just
what I
thinking
thought they were trying to get at. I forgot to put that in my grammar related discrepancies.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're trying to get this is a somber moment as they're silent, and the whole time I was just he's just sitting there next to Jan and just not talking whatsoever, but and then even later and then that's completely broken in the next couple of sentences when apparently Jan was asleep throughout most of the session. So I was like, oh, okay, so that's why they weren't talking or anything outside of it being a somber moment. And I'm pretty sure that these chuckles I'm getting are just my sense of humor, kind of my sick sense of humor, trying to put some light into this morbid, dark, depressing setting. I don't think it's intentional.
It's a defense mechanism.
I think it is. But yeah, there's definitely a few moments in the story where, as I was reading, there's just the material's rather dark and depressing, given the time period that it's set in and such. But there's just moments where just my mind took them a slightly different way, and I was just started chuckling. Yeah, that's Cultus has been a sick fuck for a moment. So I'm gonna go back to the rest of my actual thoughts here. Also kind of gives you a sense of where my head was at while reading the story, I guess. But I shall move on. Next one we have here. This is the history lesson thing that came up earlier. And this is basically when I clued in. This is a few pages down the story. So many people were buried improperly, and yet this one Czech kid was the only one who couldn't cross the veil. Okay, so I like how this story hands out bits of information on the location and even the time frame of the story. Though I didn't quite realize the setting fully until I went to check if Czech was the actual name of the ancient part of the world, like the Czech Republic. And as I found out, after I went on to Wikipedia, I actually learned that Bohemia, which is mentioned earlier in the story, is actually a place in historical Czech Republic. And the Tartars, also in the beginning of the story, but which I did know about beforehand, are a reference to the Mongolians invading Europe in the 13th century. So the story like throws in these like basically clues as to the setting without telling us exactly what the setting is. And I
You mean setting as in location or
like and
year?
time period basically, or like time
Well-
setting and location setting, because like like through these clues you can gather that, all right, so this is roughly around well, and they're also referencing the bubonic plague, like the plague that swept through the world and stuff like that. All right, so like 13th century, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, when like the plague was going on, like the Black Death, and we and through the reference of Bohemia and then later the Czech kid, we get that, okay, it's in Eastern Europe during that time period. So it's like, but it's not all told at you at once. It spans across like several pages of the story that you get these bits of information. And I personally like that, but I could understand people not liking the idea, or not liking that dispensing of setting details over the course of an entire story. And I certainly was kind of like having to reshape my headscape of the or my movie theater, like my movie theater in my mind sort of like setting, because I was kind of for some reason bringing it a little bit farther south than Czech Republic, or the Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was thinking somewhere around like Israel or even like Turkey, and apparently it was in like it's basically in the heart of Europe or of Eastern Europe. So
and you know,
like,
me, I hate having to go back and redraw what I just imagined.
Yeah. Like I didn't mind it, but I did have to acknowledge that like this would be a confusing thing for some readers. And again, like I know about the Tartars and some of that through, again, just random life experience. No, that's not. I'm not saying that.
I know.
I'm just saying, like I remember I have different interests. I remember more things that I find interesting. And like the Mongolians invading Europe in the 13th century, I remember like that from history class, and also I've watched things that have given me those kind of context clues through pop culture.
I think the most
not
I've
everybody
learned about the Mongolians is from South Park with the shitty wall.
And you know what? That's I mean, it's not a great thing, but it does prove my point that like we don't all have the same like educated experience, and not just like saying educated experience through like schooling and stuff, but I mean like through context and cultural osmosis.
Yes.
So as a result, like this story is sort of it's either gonna hit or it's gonna miss, or somebody's gonna be interested in checking out. I did not say that on purpose. Czech Republic.
How do you spell that Czech? Which kind of Czech is that?
CHECK was what I meant. But again, I like not trying to make fun of anybody's nation or history and stuff like that. I'm just saying you'll either be interested enough from this creepypasta to go read about the Czech Republic and like the setting that it's promoting, or it's proposing here, or you're gonna find it a pain and kind of like disengage immediately. So that's all I'm kind of trying to get at with this line of thinking and actual thought, is that it's cool that they were dispensing these little like clues and stuff like that for me personally, but I could see somebody like getting annoyed by like, oh, the fuck is Bohemia? Like, isn't that Rhapsody of some kind? Tartar sauce.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Tartar sauce. What?
It's interesting you say all this, because you know about all the historical stuff and what it's pointing at, and it bothered you. I didn't 100% know all the historical stuff that I was pointing at, and it didn't bother me.
No, it didn't bother me. I'm just proposing. I'm actually just kind of trying to devil's advocate, stating that like I don't mind it, but I could see why people would find an issue with it.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, and honestly, it sounds like you're proving me wrong in that, like, oh no, I didn't know anything about this, and I was fine with it. So you're actually you might be on the same page as I am personally, but sometimes we aren't on the same page.
Most of the time we're not, no. I think it's just, for me, all this location-based stuff was all in the first paragraph. So it's not like I got 3 or 4 paragraphs deep, and then it dropped some knowledge on me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where we are. So if I had to rewrite stuff in my head, it's just in the first paragraph. It doesn't really matter. Also, the location, whether it was in the Czech Republic or further south like you first assumed, it doesn't really change the story at all. It doesn't really have any implication on it. So it didn't really... The location of all this stuff happening specifically didn't really matter to me.
Okay. And I would even like go on to say that like we get all that stuff in the beginning, which did anybody else like read that first like paragraph or page in like the trailer man voice, like just the way it was
No.
like I kept like reading it like an old gruff. It's like let me just pull it up for a second.
In a
'cause
world.
no, kind of like that. Hang on, let me see if I can find. It's like I don't have the actual story up on me right now, but hang on. I'm just gonna read like the first couple paragraphs the way I was reading it.
I can imagine that now, and now that I'm reading it in my head.
Yeah, it's just like, hang on. And maybe because I have been kind of in a fantasy mood lately, so it's just like, the scourge of God spared not a soul, nor a place. For those living at a time of judgment, it seemed as if the entire world was coming undone. Like, I was reading that like that, the entire, like, basically until Jerusalem showed up. And they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah. For me,
Like-
as soon as it said "Coming Undone," I had to put that song on by Korn called "Coming Undone" to finish reading the story. Otherwise, it would have been stuck in my head the whole time.
Yeah. Also, second paragraph. After the Tartar menace came a great famine, which was so severe, formerly God-fearing people resorted to infanticide and cannibalism. It's like, yeah, it's just, it really is just like, it's a good, like, in a way, this story is actually really good at like just setting up like the terrible setting we're being dropped into. And that's like the first like 3-4 paragraphs basically. So, but moving right along. Gonna touch on this one. This is another thing I learned today. A fun fact, and like I learned a word today. A pig approached him as he walked outside. He recognized the beast, Jan's favorite swine, Pez, named so for its dog-like intelligence. Fun fact: Pez is Czech for dog. I suspected it. I suspected this from the context in the story, but I confirmed it through Google. I was like,
Okay.
I wonder if pest means dog.
I was gonna Google that, and then I didn't instead.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I also was like, I mean, I was also going to like start like looking like, is Jan and Jaroslav like an actual like a proper Czech name and some of that? And I'm sure it is. But I didn't go and do the research on that. I'm sorry.
Smooth.
Yeah. And then moving right along to the grossest thing I have ever read or in recent memory. And I don't know why, but you seem better today, Jan. Did you make that? He questioned his patient as he sat beside the bed, unpacking his pouch. Of course. Who else could have done that? The ghosts that haunt me? The blacksmith remarked before coughing straight into his stew. Droplets of blood and phlegm landed inside the nutritious concoction. Barely managed to do it this much. My whole body aches. I feel like the pestilence is trying to grind down my bones every time I move a joint. It doesn't help. I only have one hand now. He finished his dribble and went on to take another slurp of the stew, disregarding his own humors landing into his dish. Oh, like it's definitely like it's like out of all the weird like gross shit like and like body horror shit that's in this story, a man a plague-ridden man coughing blood and phlegm into his stew and then still drinking it grossed me out the most.
There's always so much food around.
Oh, like
Yeah.
they're literally referencing like the smell of death is like permeable in the air, and like there's corpses on like all around, and like dead pigs and all that kind of stuff. And like the guy gets fucking like one of his lymph nodes in his leg,
Okay.
like starts bloating out, or like later in the story. This is what grossed me out the worst, though.
Yes. Well, the question I have is, where did he get the food for that stew? I mean, did he use his other arm?
See what I think is happening. Like
That's
I'll
what
bring
I
this
said.
up. I'll bring this like I guess this is kind of tying into like one of my last actual thoughts here. But I think for some reason I thought it was like kind of insinuating that he himself had killed Pes and had been cooking up the pig like into a stew. But it's never mentioned. But for some reason I had that in my mind when he was when Jaroslav was like cringing at Jan making stew, and like was like almost like it seemed like it was like wincing and like foreshadowing it, but like it's never mentioned at all.
Oh.
And I also
never made that connection.
Yeah, I and then later in the story we get the reveal that his daughter has been alive and has been around for a bit. So I was like thinking it's like, well, maybe his daughter was like helping him, and but I don't. But again, it's never mentioned in the story. It's just kind of it might be a subtext thing, or it might just be something that the author never really thought of or didn't put in into the story.
He just made soup with one hand.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not
He might have just
impossible.
made some soup. Yeah, no, it honestly could have been that. But for some reason, my mind went to like a speculative setup where it was like, why are we focusing on the stew sort of thing? And like, why do we have that?
There has to be
that
some importance to
well,
this,
and
aside
why do
from
we have
just
this
making
mention
me
of
want to
pig
yak.
earlier? Yeah, exactly. Well, and then like, why did we have that mention of a pig earlier? And then the pig's gone, and now there's stew. Maybe they're related, except we're never gonna get that answer. Yeah. And I'll just move on to moving on. Speaking of the pig stuff, making his way to his next patient, he noticed something that looked like the top of a pig's head under a pile of rocks. An itch in his inner thigh cut off that thought. He scratched his leg and carried on. So, and earlier, like he pets the pig Pess. So for some reason, again, my mind was like speculating that he because the title of the story is Plague of Pigs. I was at this point in the story, I was like, okay, so maybe him petting the pig has gotten him to contract the plague. So like maybe the pigs are the carriers for the plague. And this is some kind of foreshadowing. And then my update is maybe it's sort of inconclusive and superfluous.
Did he pet the pig before he had the like growth on his inner thigh?
Yep. Yeah, that was
Huh.
when he left on the first trip from Jan's place. He saw the pig and pet it like a dog, and then this is like on the second or third trip. He's like walking past a place and he finds that the pig's gone by that point, and like we get the story about like the wolves or the dogs killing the pig and such, which might have been his actually been Jan's daughter. Who knows? And then we get to this like pile of bones or a pile of stones with the pig's head underneath. And then like Jaroslav's been like realizes he's been infected by the plague, and it's like, is this all connect? Like what? Like I just like my mind was like trying to connect dots. I think.
Yeah.
And then we get to the ending of the story, where this is the last paragraph of the story. He turned around to see a girl standing behind him, her hands firmly holding onto the large crucifix lodged into the back of the priest. You can't be. I buried. The priest tried saying, as blood crawled out of his mouth. Oh, she's alive, Father. Michaela is alive and well. She escaped the burial pits. You see, priest, my God would never let a child be buried alive. Like our Lord actually cures his subjects when they fall ill. Unlike your serpentine God, Jan remarked, smiling from ear to ear. Sadly, every last one of you has to go. Even good men like Jaroslav Nemec. I was not expecting this ending at all. The way as I was reading the story, I was like, I was. Then we get that like kind of revelation at the end, and they're like Act 2. Like again, I was wondering again, like we get like the apparition of his daughter, which apparently may have just actually been his daughter returning home after getting out of the burial pits. There's the pig that dies, like the squealing and the growling and stuff like that, which might have just been his daughter killing the pig and making the stew for his for her father. The rock pile with the pig head underneath, almost like an altar, which is just kind of offhandedly referenced, was like again kind of maybe like bringing forth like the like a clue as to like the other god that is being worshipped in this place. It's just this I was like completely blown away by this revelation personally. And I was like, what? And it could be completely mundane. The girl could simply have been buried alive from mass graves and returned home for revenge. Or this could almost be like a folk horror sort of like situation, and she's indeed cured by the plague by a true god of the land that now her and her father now worship and are going to watch the rest of the world burn as a result of it. So is this a buddy horror if it's a father-daughter duo?
Yeah.
Kinda.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
The other thought process that I had is that the ending could be Jan's final hallucination.
Oh, shit. Yeah, like because we like some of them were pretty vivid from the beginning, like Jaroslav becoming a Hydra. So yeah, I could see that. Like basically his like with his last like as soon as the priest like was like as soon as Jan started like his confession started turning a little darker toward the priest, I was like, man, he's like, does anybody else remember that knife that was under his pillow? Like, that priest is about to get stabbed. And then it got stabbed from behind. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, like the story like is got a bit of a slow burn to it with the horror and like the dark setting, and then just like throws open the windows to this. You thought it was going to be this, now it's this sort of thing. And yeah, like that whole thing of like his daughter killing his friend and the priest could all just be in his mind as he in his last like death throes, hallucinatory death knells, just grabs the knife from under his pillow again and kills the priest and Jaroslav, and just thinks that it's been done by his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like you could if the story had like one extra little bit where he just like succumbed to darkness, that could maybe like add on to that angle as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's my actual thoughts so far. So I've been very enthusiastic about this story. So how about you guys just tear me down and just move over to Mikey here?
You got it.
All right. So my first actual thought, I have a quote here. The dead outnumbered the living soon enough, and society was on the brink of collapse. The dead always outnumber the living.
I think it means
the
like
recent
in this
dead.
year.
Yeah, the recent dead are outnumbering the living. Also, did anybody else?
I also had the same thought though. So,
yeah. Well, I had the thought, and I'm not sure if any of you guys had it. Like when you read that part, I was like, did you guys think or hope maybe that this story was going to have a zombie outbreak?
All right.
No.
Okay. Let me get on to my next thought here.
Okay.
Those zombies.
So starting with the name, Plague of Pigs.
Yeah.
In the back of my mind was something's going to happen with pigs. So one of the things was, when do we get the zombie/demonic pig horde? Or when is this going to turn into Pigscape?
Oh, God. Why?
Why not?
We all thought Dogscape was bad enough. What about Pigscape? Porkscape? Where Long Pig just becomes pig. Long Pig, for anybody who doesn't know, is another word for human flesh.
Nice.
It's like a cannibal form of that, basically, or it's like what cannibals call like in cannibal horror and such. Like that's what human flesh is often referred to as long pig, because we kind of taste similar to pig, I guess. Not gonna lie, I also I'd like this over the weekend, like a couple of days before I started reading. I did watch Princess Mononoke, so I did just keep thinking of like when are the giant boar tribe going to show up. So I was on kind of a same wavelength there, Mikey.
All right. And then the pig that we do end up getting is Pez.
Yeah.
The basically the piggo, the good pig that ends up that ends up dying by dogs, and then it's a sad story.
You know what? Like, part of me, I do get a little triggered from dog death in stories, and I don't think I'm trying to think as like I don't think I was triggered by the pig dying, but I know I was a little
dogs
sad.
Killed the pig, so dogs went. So you're
but
fine.
I know I know there was a sliver of like, oh, when I read that part where the pig when the pig was like there, I was like, oh, that pig's totally dead. Like in the same vein as, oh, that dog's totally dead. It's a dog in a horror movie. It's a pet in a horror movie. That thing's dead.
Yeah. And then my next actual thought, my head canon, because I didn't initially look up the time that this occurred, was that he was wearing a plague doctor mask.
Yeah. That changed 3 times for me in the story. I'm going to be honest. Because it mentions plague doctor, so I immediately went to the beak.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then, as it kept going, I wasn't exactly sure what time frame we were in. Like, I knew we were in the, I like, because it was referencing also like the Tartars and stuff. And for some reason, I thought that was a lot earlier than the 13th century. So I was expecting almost like, and I was also putting it like farther south in like somewhere near in like the Mediterranean or like the Middle East. So I was like thinking more like if I'm being honest, I was kind of getting the vibes from like Assassin's Creed Origins, so like almost like ancient Egyptian sort of like time period. Maybe it's because like the mud hut or their huts and stuff like that. So that's where I was like, oh, so it was like early plague doctors who just wore a rag over their head or their face with like lavender and stuff. And then we got back to like, oh no, this is the 13th century because this is during Bohemia and like the Mongolian horde and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, so I guess that not all plague doctors are the beak masked guys in that time frame.
Yeah, because it does very clearly say that he has a rag that's like scented or something.
I'm just going to quickly look something up here. When did that plague doctor thing become a thing? It was during the
17th century.
17th century. Okay, so so that's a ways away. That's also like in like Western Europe mostly, not Eastern Europe. So yeah. So that's the thing. Like we're getting like because of like again pulp culture and like the cultural osmosis and stuff like that. We're getting kind of like mixed signals, I guess, on like the aesthetics that are going on here.
You say we. But as soon as he just said,
did.
like, he has a cloth over his mouth, I'm like, okay, that's what he looks like, done.
Well, but I'm saying, like, I had, like, three mental changes while I was doing this.
The way I saw it, like, there was no talk of him being behind a mask the entire time. So I just thought he was just walking around barefaced. And then it mentioned the cloth later on. I'm like, okay, I guess he's wearing that. And then that was it.
The use of plague doctor usually means that they're going to have their face covered because even in the early times, people were smart enough to know you probably shouldn't have. You should probably wear a mask.
Did the priest put a mask on?
No.
My point exactly.
But he's not a plague doctor. He's not a physician. He's a clergyman.
Yeah, but there's a physician there, and if that physician is not an idiot, he'd be like, get a rag or something before you go in there.
You know what? Like, sure, maybe, but that's not always the case either. Like,
whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's move on.
All right, and now it is time to be critically silly.
I mean, we haven't been. Shit.
No,
that's just starting right now.
Okay.
Some have called it the Great Pestilence, others the Great Dying. So I googled the Great Dying, and that's the Permian Triassic extinction event. Therefore, the characters are actually dinosaurs.
Oh, god damn it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Man, I hate you.
Yep.
Because I want to draw a comic of like a plague tale, but set in a time where like it's like anthropomorphic dinosaurs.
Well, you do have an excuse to at least draw something related to that, because there's a title card that has to be done.
Yeah.
Just keep adding shit to the title card. It's gonna look like Where's Waldo, just like all the shit that you're drawing.
Yeah, or I'll just pick and choose, or not choose any of these. I just make something completely random, like I've done a couple of times.
That's pretty critically silly.
That is.
Yes, and that's it for my actual thoughts.
Alrighty then. I guess it's on to you, gamer.
Yep. So pretty early on, when it's describing the world, it's like the Dance Macabre was a plague that had killed most humans living. At the time of the outbreak, the catastrophe laid entire cities to waste. My first thought about when I was reading that, I'm like, how topical that you picked this for us contest.
I did not mean to.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, our pandemic, our plague, has been going on for a year and a half, or for almost a year now. So yeah, it's not really topical if it's been going on this long.
A plague's a plague, man. They're all a plague. Then moving on, Jan mentions how he saw Michaela and all that, like in his dreams or whatever, and then Jarek acts really shocked, like he's needing to pace around the room and think.
Yeah, I did think that was weird.
I thought that was very weird because previously Jan also like mentioned that he saw him as a multi-headed serpent, but that was totally fine. He just brushed that off. But you saw someone that you knew previously. Oh, that's too weird. I can see you seeing me as a Hydra man. That makes perfect sense. But seeing a loved one of yours, no, that's fucked up. I gotta think about this.
Yeah, that is kind of like, especially like given like the superstition of the time, and like even though he's also a man of science, so he's like he was able to rational again. Like they're both like tortured men at this time period because they both have lost family as we find out in the story, like both of them like lost their families to the plague.
Yeah.
So like maybe this moment is sort of like a pang of trauma that is bled through his professionalism. That because like he's so like all right, I can understand you like having delusions of seeing me as a monster, but you're starting to hit a little too close to home, sir, when you're starting to see your own relatives, your recent like dead kin.
Yeah.
Like too soon, man, too soon. But it did come off very like sort of startling.
Yeah, he just reacted strange to it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't, like, if that was the intention, cool, but it should have been more heavy-handed with that. Like, after hearing that, he got, memories flooded back into his head of his family and how they died and all that, but there's just nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that would have maybe cleared up the reaction.
Mm-hmm. And then my last one is kind of, actually, I believe this is the same quote that you said for grammar. I read it differently, and that's fine. So basically, Jarek listens to Jan say that he saw a ghostly evil version of his daughter and all that, and how he saw himself in hell. And then it says, Jaroslav turned around as the man rambled on and walked out of the room, unable to handle the absurdity of the situation. Yeah. So, no, I did read it right. Regardless, my note to that is just, wow, Jarek's a dick.
I know. No, really good bedside manner there, Doc.
Yeah, just no bedside manner at all.
Especially to one of your best friends?
Yeah, really. Like one of his only surviving friends, probably. And he's like, no, I don't want to hear this. Just walks out.
Like, I'll see you in 2 or 3 days if you're alive.
But he doesn't even say, like, look, I gotta go. He just walks.
Yeah, he just leaves.
He's that guy from the room where he just does the little wave and walks out.
He just does a little wave from the side of from his like hip. He does a hip hand wave.
Maybe it's just a doctor thing. He was like a therapist, wasn't he?
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was a doctor in that movie. What the hell was his name?
I'm ever a doctor, that's going to be my way that I say goodbye to my patients.
just walk out while waving from your hip.
Yeah, just little like weak wave as I walk out. And I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I want to say it was like Steve, but I don't know.
Steve.
Cheap. I want to keep saying it was Mark, but I know Mark's the best friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's irrelevant.
It's important. It's really not. Okay. Either way, that's the last one.
Are we looking it up?
I'm looking it up, but it doesn't matter. Peter,
yeah.
Continue. So yeah, that's the end of my notes.
Okay.
Didn't really have too much on this one.
Yeah, I feel like I had probably the most, or at least I talked the most, as per usual.
Well, you always talk the most because you do intro, the rundown, then you start your shit.
Yeah. But anyways, but on to the final thoughts. So, to me, it was a slow burn of misery and real historic horror as it's set up. And then at the end, rather surprisingly, it just like hits you with a thrill of revelation as to like just throws down this like surprise like kind of like ending that I personally really liked. Sort of like building up. You think that, okay, this is just going to be like this guy's going to die, and it's just like the sad, terrible horror of human misery in the bubonic plague times. And then nope, gods and a revived daughter is back, and she's out for, and they're all out for vengeance against the non-believers. I want to recommend this one, though I recommend it with a caution of like, if you don't like body horror sort of stuff or depressing historical themes, maybe just be aware of that. But hey, also that if you're into historical, like the depressive historical themes of like the bubonic plague and like folk horror and hell, even body horror of like plague victims and such, maybe that's a plus for you. So yeah, recommendation. A generally positive recommendation for.
When you're talking about that and talking about the other gods that showed up, I'm surprised that god wasn't name dropped.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Because he's supposed to be like, my god is better than your god. My god is an awesome god. Nice.
Oh, I love how unintentional that was. We just both went to that lyrics.
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't name dropped. Like, who the fuck was he?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a god of the land of Bohemia, like before like Christendom showed up. Is my guess. Like, I think that's at least that's where my mind kind of went to, is that it wasn't. It may not have been the devil. It may not even been like the Christian god. Like, I think it was like basically the god that was there before Christianity took hold of that region.
I mean, for all we know, what Christianity we're talking about religion and shit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Basically,
the view like this is a speculative discussion, not like a belief thing that we hold. Okay, just
exactly.
putting that out there
For sure. That being said, in the lore of this story, they could be saying that this character is the devil, as in the Christian people and Christianity and all that basically took the previous god that was on these lands and strung him up as the devil in their religion.
I mean, to be fair, that's what Christianity does.
Kind of
has done. No, 100% is what Christianity has done to every pagan god in the history of its situation. They've turned pagan gods into devils. Like most of the devil hierarchy are just gods from other religions.
Yeah. It's also kind of given me like imagery of like the English coming over to North America and pushing out a certain other group of people.
I mean, again, to be fair, no, yeah, legit. Like this is like these are like the themes of this story is basically the old gods are kind of taking back the land and their people from the invading god. And it's actually kind of interesting that it's like also backdropped with the invading Mongols and their heathen gods coming in and destroying Christendom. Like we get that perspective, but then it turns out that the story is actually about, the gods that were here before taking back their land and people from the Christian god. Yeah, it's the story has some surprisingly complex themes in it that I'm sure won't piss off anybody of any faith.
Of course not.
But yeah, no, it's basically like a folk. It's very folk horror in that aspect. So. Yeah, I do. I think it's another reason why I like the story. Is that it kind of, if you think on it, it does have some very provocative themes to it. Yeah, I guess on to Mikey's recommendation.
Well, going back to the beginning of the story.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I wish you didn't say story.
I finally got it on you guys.
With their insatiable hunger for destruction and inhuman lust for the blood of the civilized people, they scourged the earth beneath the hooves of their horses. So just one of the things that came to mind was some of the horsemen of the apocalypse.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I almost wonder if maybe some of our Horsemen of the Apocalypse, or the Horsemen of the Apocalypse legends or lore now, may have stemmed from the Tartars, and because they were basically a horde of horse riding to Christendom barbarians. Again, we want hate mail. We don't want death threats from any particular faith.
Like a lot of qualifiers on everything we say in this episode.
I suddenly become self-aware of oh right, yeah, I put this out online. Oh shit. But yeah, no, it's I almost wonder now, it's like how again, like we were saying like just a minute ago about how Christendom kind of tends to pull and demonize other groups and such. I wonder how much of that apocalyptical content that we see in again the Horsemen of the Apocalypse and such isn't derived from the fears of early Christendom from various groups that were kind of attacking them or antagonizing them.
Mm-hmm. Also, yeah. I gotta get this out of my head. Yeah, you should be worried. As soon as you said apocalyptical, I imagined an elliptical that's just super metal with spikes and everything coming out of it. It's the most metal way to work out.
Oh, so metal. And it's not even running, you're just stomping.
Totally.
Feel the burn.
But the burn is fire. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Literal fire.
Yeah, there's just little jet fire plumes coming off from the sides.
Totally.
So it's just plain Slayer and Megadeth while you stomp run on the elliptical.
Totally.
Also, I think I'm mixing up a treadmill with an elliptical in my imagery.
No, you're right. They're it's basically a walking simulator.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Mike. We ran right over your recommendation.
The pun was there. I had to say it.
I
Sorry.
understand.
And for me, I would have liked Pig in a story called Plague of Pigs.
Yeah, I was about to start talking again. I was like, no, this is Mikey's spotlight.
And the fact that it's the bubonic plague, I don't think that really was the Plague of Pigs, because the bubonic plague was moved by ticks that
On rats.
Yeah,
Mostly. I mean, mostly.
mostly.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come. But yeah, like it's basically just like uncleanliness is the reason why the bubonic plague spread so fucking far.
What do pigs normally do? Roll around in
No,
dirt?
that's what I'm saying. So like I think maybe it may have depended, because I know rats are commonly the focal point of the plagues, because they were on ships. They were the responsible for like basically it spreading from place to place because of the merchant ships. It's what like yeah, and like like France and Venice and all the port harbors, like the port capitals, basically all got fucking ruined because of rats on ships. And also again, like just at the time period, cleanliness was not a priority for a lot of people, and unfortunately, that helped contribute to the spread of the ticks and disease. So maybe the pigs might have actually, like in certain parts of the world, maybe the pigs were the icon of pestilence because of because they basically harbored the ticks that were carrying the plague. But yeah, you are right. It is mostly rats. I think the title is mostly just stemming from the first off pests, but also the statement from like that he has about his god, like that, like the only pigs would worship or would be non-believers. I gotta reread that part. Where does it say here?
It was something pro pig.
Yeah, hang on. I'm reading it right now. Yeah, here it is. Father, my God, the Lord of this land, he's angry at you, at your God, and he has cast this pestilence upon you, the false believers. My heavenly master has decided to punish you all, Christians, with a plague of pigs, for only pigs would worship a God that thrives on the senseless mass murder of innocents.
Okay, no, it was not pro pig.
Yeah, no, it was just like basically it's like sheeple kind of thing. It's like it's a derogatory term for the people who believe in the Christian God, because what God would allow for such senseless death of innocence?
Yeah, and he's like calling them out as pigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
technically, if you want to go more biblical, sorry, Mikey, did I cut you off?
It's all right. Keep going.
What we do here.
That's my secret. I'm always cutting someone off.
Yeah.
No. Like to go further, deep dive further biblically. The like I know that's what a term for like I know like the pig thing with like religion is also, I think, what Jewish like has some Jewish connotations, because of like they don't eat pork because of kosher, and the reason that stems from is because of actually more or less a safety hazard, because like pigs have or like in those time periods you couldn't properly cure certain meats and stuff like that, and pig had a higher chance of like getting salmonella and all that kind of stuff. So that's why they had it in their scripture that like you don't eat pig because it's unclean, because it's been wallowing in mud and stuff like that, and it's easier to contract diseases from it. And so like when they'd brand certain people who were pig farmers as like unbelievers and such. So perhaps there's that kind of connotation as well.
So one aspect of Judaism back in the day was like a safety PSA.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like that's 100%. Like
this is a good way to do it, especially back then when people were so like viciously religious about certain things, right?
Exactly. In some ways you could say it's a form of cultural control, but it's also a way of educating people who would otherwise not believe you. Like if you say that God did it or God says it, like in those early times, people would latch onto that much faster than common sense. Again, not judging anybody in particular of any faith. I didn't realize this was going to be quite a controversial episode.
Yeah, it's getting bad.
Yeah, let's just. Okay. So Mikey, would you like to continue or conclude your recommendation?
Hi. So keeping it short. Needs more pig. Not recommend.
Needs more bacon.
That's fair.
So wait, so you say you're not recommending?
No.
Okay, fair enough. And gamer.
For me, it was a very vivid read. Like everything was very clearly described. It was lengthy, but it had like a good build to it and all that. I was wondering where all the pig-related things would show up because they really only showed up later on, and because it was so spotty before. The way that it was putting like the pig skulls and shit, like one of them was he was walking and there was a random pig skull there, but if you looked at it, it was an altar. It said that.
Yeah,
but
no,
you didn't
I
look
get
and see it, and nothing came of that. Really,
it might have kind of, but maybe. My assumption is that like because if Michaela's been around for a few days at least, like since her father started seeing her, so maybe Michaela like has been basically in hiding, but like secretly worshiping the other, like the true god of the land, through that like pig altar. That's it's like there's little clues and bits in the story that like if you think on it, like you go back and you can kind of trace certain like, oh, they were in there. We just had no context up until the very end of the story when we get that revelation that she was alive.
I don't remember where the pig altar was. Was it on Jarrett's land?
No, I think he was just walking past like after leaving Jan's place, and he saw the pile of rocks and the pig head underneath. After Pest got killed like the night before.
No, there was a second coming of the pig.
Here's it's brought up twice because the one is like when it's just a pig's head, and then suddenly we get one like, and then there's another instance again when Jen I think is walking over to the maybe the clergyman's place or something, or maybe just before that, where he finds this. It's another rock pile with a pig skull underneath, and so I was like. I was thinking, it's like that's really like, is that the same rock pile with the pig's head underneath? Because that's a really fast decomposition of a pig. Assuming that is even the same pig, right? But yeah, it is.
I'm finding this section. Yeah. I found the section. This is after when Jan was like dying, and he had to go get the priest. Yeah, he said he marched as fast as he could to the church, and then he walked so fast he failed to see a pig skull staring at him from a small pile of rocks. So, like, while he was just going to the church, I guess, he just saw that randomly out there.
Yeah, so it's almost like a movie. Like, if you were watching the scene in a movie, like, you'd see Jaroslav, like, limpy marching away, like, past the scene. And then it would, like, focus in on this, like, stone pile with a pig skull looking at him or something.
Yeah, this is the one where it's because a pig skull looked like it was placed on a rocky altar. So this is, like, a different one. Or maybe it's the same one that's been properly made into an altar.
Yeah.
They just got the components to make it. That's why the pig skull was just under it before, but then it got fixed up later on by the time he was about to die.
Yeah. Like I would, if this was a movie, like if this was a folk horror, like period piece horror movie sort of thing, like I could definitely see it being done like the in the same vein as like The Witch, The Vitch, because the way the W is, it's just two V's. Or like any kind of like medieval horror movie sort of thing. I could see like this be. I could honestly like watch. I could see the layout of this entire movie, like scene for scene. Because that's kind of what it feels like. But yeah, it's definitely got scenes where just like this seems like it's more for the audience than Jaroslav.
Yeah, it is very much set up like that, and I do like that because, like I said before, it was all very visual. I saw everything, every gross detail. It was great. I love being grossed out and depressed. It's amazing.
Well, again, like some people some people get enjoyment from that kind of thing, like or it's not so much a depressing thing as it's depressive material, but it's historically removed, or it's something that they can enjoy from on an intellectual level, right?
Yeah, I mean, like until the last 2 minutes, it was not historically removed.
No, it was not at all.
Like really, because the whole time I thought it was just going to be a period piece, as you said, where you just see how fucked up it could have been back then. But I am also agreeing with Mikey. There needs to be more pigs. There's only 8 mention of the word pig in this. There needs to be way more pig.
Fair.
Just from the title alone, I imagined like Okay, that might be on my fault because I imagined just from reading the title there was going to be a horde of pigs that showed up and did shit.
Yeah.
Because like
Mhm.
a plague of
were we
pigs,
all
like
thinking like
plural and
plague as
everything,
in like a plague of? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, like, were we all thinking like a plague of pigs, as in like the plague of rats, like a horde of animals?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I was
Exactly.
thinking, yeah, like and even I again, like I think if they had focused on that like the pigs were the harbingers of the plague in this town, like maybe that that might improve the story a little bit, just to kind of hammer home that kind of idea of like that, like this god has sent down this plague through the pigs.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, otherwise it's just like it's just a metaphor for the people who believe in the wrong god in this town that are being
Yeah.
afflicted by the plague.
In one sense of the word, I want to say a more suitable title would be like the plague bearers or something like that, or the bringers of the plague.
Mhm.
But because it's plague of pigs, I'm assuming it's going to be a horde of pigs and everything, and it doesn't really, but it kind of gets there.
Yeah.
So it is suitable. It just it started me off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, I think it's because it's less literal and more metaphorical, or it's more like it's less actually a plague of pigs and more kind of like the pigs are just the plague of pigs is just like kind of an analogy for the plague that's afflicting the people here.
Mhm. But with all that being said,
Yes.
I did enjoy the read. I liked the little bit of a twist at the end, although I wish there was a little bit more context to things because we are kind of grasping at straws with a lot of this.
Yeah, no, yeah, I
With,
definitely
like,
have a
all
cork board.
the hints. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have a crazy cork board with red twine on like certain spots.
Totally. But yeah,
Just
I'll
adding
give
to
it
the title card. Sorry.
I'll give it a very positive partial recommendation because it was good and it's in what it was trying to do, and the twist was good. None of us really saw it going that way. I didn't really know how it was going to go. The way he was reading, I thought it might have just been a depressive tale and just nothing really creepypasta-y about it. And
Yeah,
the way it is, it might not be creepypasta-y the way it came out because it could be entirely mundane.
I still think that's it. I think because of the ending, even if you do take it the mundane way, I still think it's creepypasta. It's certainly to me more of a creepypasta than we did one a couple of years back called about like a gulag, and it was really just a depressing historical piece and less of a creepypasta.
Yeah.
And this one's definitely like I was definitely getting vibes like, is this really like creepy? Like, I mean, it's depressing and there's disturbing scenes in it, but I'm not really creeped out. And then that ending was like, yes, okay, it was all a slow burn to that point.
And the drop about like the godlike entities and all of that, again, that could just be mad ramblings of this guy that's about to die and everything, but I mean it just kind of worked.
Yeah, exactly. And certainly the category that the story is on creepypasta.wiki matches that, because it is under actually historic or history. It's under the tags history and mental illness. So yeah, this could definitely, it seems like maybe this was being taken more of like a sort of a mundane route, but you could also again, it teeters that line between mundane and terrible, like human suffering sort of thing, or there's actually some kind of an interesting, or like there's actually, I don't want to say interesting because that kind of devalues the mundane aspect of it, but it could be mundane with its creepiness, or it could be supernatural with its creepiness, and it's kind of left up there in the air for the viewer or the reader to postulate on.
I do wonder if Jan actually died at the end, or if he was just kind of like playing possum the whole time to just get the clergyman out of the church so he can off him.
Oh, you're going like kind of a Blair Witch Project sort of thing. It's like, did the two boys like fake all the stuff in the woods just to kill Clara?
Sure.
That's a theory for the Blair Witch Project, is that the whole fucking thing's mundane and it's actually just a murder plot. It's actually, there's an underlying murder plot. That like the two boys are like spurned, like one of them's a spurned lover to the main girl. I can't remember her name. I don't think it's Claire. It might be.
It's less important to Google than Peter.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, like for like all the supernatural weird shit that happens in the Blair Witch Project, like you could take it that it's like, oh yeah, there's a ghost witch in the woods that like got them all and stuff like that. However, there's a theory out there that like basically the whole thing was a ploy from the two boys to murder the girl, like traumatize her, terrorize her in the woods, and then eventually off her woods.
But didn't they die as well? You just said that.
No, they never found their bodies. So that's
But
the
they
thing.
found
Is
the
like,
girl's body?
no, they didn't even find the girl's body. So she's still out there somewhere buried, maybe, and they just have never
Oh,
found
okay.
her. Like that's the thing. The only thing they found was the tapes in a bag.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's the big mystery and stuff of the Blair Witch Project is like, where do they have what happened there and such. And yeah, I honestly really like that theory because it like adds an extra level of like fucked upness to the story.
It really does.
And again,
This whole thing is like a conspiracy with their religion to overthrow Christianity, basically.
like overthrow the church.
Yeah,
that has control over the people here. That would actually be a really interesting like addition, or like if there's like a few extra words in here to like kind of lean it that way, it would be really interesting.
because he does say that, like, unlike your god, our god actually cures their worshippers. That being said, he's laying on a table dying of the plague. Is he not dying, or is he being cured?
Well, that's maybe he'll be cured once he gets rid of the priest and stuff like that, or maybe Jan's been faking some of his injury, his stuff, because he was good for a couple of days and then he kind of relapsed mysteriously. So it might have even been like, again, a murder ploy against the priest and Jaroslav.
Yeah, it might be like his god is saying, "Yeah, I'll cure you, but you gotta kill a guy for me first."
Yeah.
Jan
killed a guy. Man. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I just said like a life for a life kind of situation.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, I'll cure your daughter and you, but you in return, 2 lives need to be taken. 2 very valuable lives to this community.
Yeah, I mean, Jarek was dying anyways.
Yeah, he was getting. Yeah, he had contracted the virus or the plague.
Yeah, but from the looks of it, he was probably going to be kicking around for a while. So yes, very valuable lives. Either way, a high recommendation, but not fully recommended, because there are things that I wasn't 100% on with this, but it was still very good.
For sure. Okay. So I guess basically 2 mostly positive. Like, again, like there's always room for improvement, and this story, like our discussion, has definitely looked into both ends of the spectrum of it here. And then a non-recommendation because not enough pig.
It really does need to be more pigs.
Yeah.
If there's more pigs, it would have been a full recommendation.
If it had been a full-on pig roast, would have loved it. But
it could have like rewound back, so it's not starting right in the middle of it. It could have showed that the like basically it started through like an import of pigs from God knows where, and that started spreading the plague around.
But yeah, that is this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey's at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W because his name is very long.
It has to be.
And I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky tales online, cryptid sightings, stuff like that. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. We'll review it. We thank you for your contribution. And if you'd like to support the show, you can go to Patreon, look at Al Dente Rigor Mortis, and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons already helping support the show, thank you immensely, because you're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate it. And to our listeners and the writers of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it would be like screaming into the void. And without your stories and your writings online that you share, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we wouldn't have anything to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.